one of the things that was really fun at that point in CCOF is that farmers were inspecting farmers instead of having a paid inspector who came out to your farm, which is the case now. We were sort of inspecting each other, especially in our county. Our county had its own chapter of CCOF, but we were part of the rule writing and figuring out what it really actually meant to grow organically and to be certified and what that actually meant. So
welcome to the Real Organic Podcast. I'm Lindley Dixon, co-director of the Real Organic Project. We're a grassroots, farmer-led movement with an add-on organic food label, distinguishing organic crops grown in healthy soils and organic livestock raised on well-managed pasture. You just heard from Dru Rivers, one of the founders of Full Belly Farm outside Sacramento, California. Dru was reminiscing about the early days of CCOF, which stands for California Certified Organic Farmers, an organization that inspects and certifies organic farms throughout California and the world. There are many excellent certifying agencies across the country, including the NOFA chapters in the Northeast, MOFCA in Maine, OFA in Ohio, OneCert in the West. But to the dismay of many farmers like Dru, who helped found CCOF, it has become the largest certifier of hydroponics in the world, while many certifying agencies, like the ones I listed, will not certify hydroponics as organic. Dru is an awesome champion for organic farming and will be speaking at our upcoming conference at EcoFarm on January 17th. We hope you will join us either live at Asilomar Conference Grounds in Monterey Bay, California, or through the live streaming option. All ticket holders will receive recordings so they can watch the many excellent speakers at their convenience. Now back to our interview with Dru Rivers.
Welcome to the Real Organic Podcast, and I'm talking today with my old friend, Dru Rivers. So, hi, Dru.
hi.
I am here for the first time in my life at Full Belly Farm. We've known each other a long time, but I've never been to your farm. You've been to mine before. This is beautiful, amazing place, so much going on. Tell me how you came here. Where did you come from? How did you get to farming?
So I grew up in Vermont, your area, and then I came out to California when I was 18 to study agriculture at UC Davis, and I spent my college years there. And then after college, got a job actually at the university in Davis, California, where I was a farm manager of the sort of organic farm there on the UC Davis campus. And I did that for a couple of years and met my husband, Paul. He was one of the advisors for this farm at UC Davis. And we met at a conference, the Ecological Farming Conference. And we then decided to move to, we farmed for a couple years near Davis. And then we really wanted a place that we felt we could really call organic. There's a lot of spray happening in the Central Valley where we were, in the Sacramento Valley. So we looked around for farms and found this place here, Full Belly Farm, in 1983. And
so these were pretty much the early days of organic in America.
Yeah.
Yeah. When you were doing the organic farm at Davis, that must have really been the early days. Did the professors welcome having an organic farm?
No, not at all. It was then called Alternatives in Agriculture, really. This farm was one of the first places where students could do research on organic techniques and learning about sort of very small research plots on various crops that could be grown organically. But it was very much frowned on by even the faculty advisory board to the farm. I was admonished to not get involved, and especially with particular people that were sort of then in the sort of mainstream of organic. And so, it was a constant battle. It was a sort of uphill climb to get this farm accepted by the faculty, by the Dean of Agriculture, was actually a pretty supportive guy and did champion for us to keep that farm going. And to this day, it's still there and has become now much more recognized as a long-term organic research facility.
So help people to understand where this was coming from. I really think it's interesting. Organic is so established now in many ways as a kind of branch of agriculture. And even in academia, there's a lot of professors who support the idea of organic farming, but that was not the case back then. What was the world in which this was happening? Was this coming out of the turmoil of the 60s and the Vietnam War? And, what was the ground that this grew out of?
Yeah, I think for me, my perspective was that it really came out of a lot of pesticide scares that happened in the early 80s, late 70s. There was the Alcar scare in California. There was this whole watermelon, herbicides being taken up by watermelons and then people getting sick by them. That was a real crowning moment in the early 80s where people were suddenly like, wow, I could get sick from eating food that's been sprayed with pesticides. And I think there was probably a dozen of those incidences that happened over a period of, say, 5 years. And people, I think, really started to get concerned that their food could be not good for them. And so some of this came out of that. Some of it also came out of ag labor issues, farm workers getting sick from sprays. And so, a lot of rallying behind the farm worker community and the safety for what they were experiencing in their jobs picking and packing produce. So,
what about for you?
For me,
yeah, like why did you pick farming at all or agriculture, and why did you pick organic?
I picked agriculture mostly because I had grown up in Vermont where everybody had beautiful gardens. And my mom and dad had a huge garden, like probably half an acre. And so I was really accustomed to eating fresh produce. And I really wanted that in my life. Somehow that just spoke to me. Big homesteading movement in Vermont of putting food by, and that really also spoke to me. And so I knew from early on that I wanted food to be part of my life and be a part of my passion for what I did with my life. And then coming to UC Davis, there was a lot of, I was a plant science and entomology major. And at that point, it was just the beginning of sort of biocontrol and, insects being useful in helping with pest control. And all of those things sort of rang true to me that we could move away from this sort of pesticide, chemical-oriented ag to an ag that was really healthy and good for the planet. I think those were things that really spoke to me at that early age.
Yeah. Okay, so you fell in love also with a young farmer, Paul, but he also had not come from an organic background. So he was together, you were imagining a new kind of farming?
Yeah, so his family farmed, probably 5,000 to 10,000 acres of ground. They were traditional row crop farmers, canning tomatoes, wheat, alfalfa, and, it was definitely not organic. But Paul, I think at the same time that I was, but separately, really questioning that, he was sitting on a tractor spraying chemicals at his dad's farm and really questioning whether that was good for himself or good for the people he was working with. And so he started to really think about separating from them. And he went off on his own, growing some crops organically. Together, we actually grew seed crops for a company called Northrop King. We were part of their vine production seed crops like melons and pumpkins and various other vine crops. And we realized that we were growing all that seed organically, but they didn't really care or know that. And we realized we would rather be selling these crops as fresh market crops than grinding them up for the seed. Yeah. And so we sort of moved from seed production to fresh market vegetable production, sort of from that experience. And we started probably with 12 or 15 acres to begin with. And when we moved here, this farm is about 100 acres. The original home farm was 100 acres. And then that's when we really started in earnest growing everything organically here. That was beginning of 1984. Yeah. And yeah, it was a really interesting time.
Was there a CCOF yet?
There was the beginnings of CCOF, but they were still definitely writing rules. And one of the things that was really fun at that point in CCOF is that farmers were inspecting farmers instead of having a paid inspector who came out to your farm, which is the case now. We were sort of inspecting each other, especially in our county. Our county had its own chapter of CCOF, but we were part of the rule writing and figuring out what it really actually meant to grow organically and to be certified and what that actually meant. So
that, yeah, it kind of an exciting time. One of the things that I was also in the early days in Vermont, I was part of the original Vermont Organic Farmers, which is our first self-certification group that grew out of NOFA. And, we met every year to hash out the standards. And as Jim Durst said to me yesterday, he said he remembered big fights about whether or not to allow wood ash, because that was kind of processed by burning the wood. And we had these passionate discussions about, what do we mean by organic? And people were involved. The farmers were involved.
Very involved.
And when the USDA took over, which, had some very great positives and some negatives. And one of the negatives is that people became passive. The farmers became passive in terms of it wasn't up to them to decide what we were going to call organic anymore. Did you see that happen here?
Gosh, 100%. Yeah, I mean, our YOLO chapter of CCOF we were kind of considered the radical chapter for a while in the beginnings because we were, really adamant that farmers should be inspecting farmers and, very active group. We had meetings, at least once a month, and they were fun meetings, lively, energetic, because people were so passionate about this. And I would 100% say that after, the federal government started taking over, making those decisions, we all, even I, became much more passive about it.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of a fascinating thing to me about what happened to that. And
Yeah.
I see that if somebody else has all the authority to make the decisions, you just kind of, it's not my job.
Yeah.
And I think that there's been something precious that got lost in there, and which I hope the Real Organic Project is going to help us find our way back to.
Well, I was going to say, Dave, that I felt that passion again about a year ago when we all, a bunch of us, got together and went to the CCOF board meeting. And it was the first time in many, many years that I felt that passion again. People had an opinion about this and, about the soil and organic. And it sort of ignited a bunch of us again to get together and talk about it. And so if anything, the Real Organic Project has sort of brought that back, that energy back. It's been really fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was, of course, there when you first announced at Eco Farm. It was actually a workshop I was giving, and you got up and said, well, do you remember what you said? I'd rather have you talk about it than me talk about it.
Well, I just felt like, we have supported, and both financially and, in many ways through our business, supported CCOF. And it was just really frustrating to me that there was not any interest or really any movement in changing that conversation about soil-less being able to be certified. And so I just was pretty impassioned at that meeting that we really needed to move that spectrum so that we could, make that conversation keep going forward. And so, yeah, we got up and said, hey, we need to change this, or, there's going to be a lot of unhappy farmers in CCOF.
Yeah. You actually said you were going to go out and picket the meeting.
Yeah, I did say I was going to picket, but I got convinced to be in attendance at the meeting instead of being more radical with pickets. And so we did go and meet with them. It was pretty disappointing, honestly. That meeting to me was a place where I had set a lot of hopes that we could be heard and that we could move the needle of the conversation even just a little bit, but I didn't feel like it moved an inch. And yeah, it was disappointing.
Do you think that there's some disconnection between the farmers of CCOF and the leadership? I just, I've been to now years of meetings at which the leadership of CCF were among the most outspoken proponents of certifying hydroponic as organic. And I always felt that I don't think this is how the farmers feel. The only organic farmers that I have known in California were real organic. They believed that it's all about the fertility of the soil and building and maintaining that. Do you think there is something that's happened where the leadership has wandered away from the farmers whom they certify?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's a conundrum that I don't really understand. Like we have, over 100 farms still in the YOLO chapter. If you asked any of them who the president of our chapter was, they probably wouldn't know. There's so little communication. I mean, we're pretty active, but sometimes we don't even know when the meetings are, or when the next president of our chapter or representative from our chapter is going to be up for renewal. I mean, there's just so little active communication from the leadership to the farmers. And I think it's left most people just seeing it as paperwork and nothing that they really need to get involved with. And so I feel like that's one of the reasons why the Real Organic Project has been successful. And
Yeah, it's actually important to figure out how things happen. George Orwell wrote Animal Farm, and if you go back and read it, it's a painful story, but it's about how is it that the animals, even when they're being run by animals, end up in the same situation that they were when the humans were taking advantage of them. And it does happen. And here we are. We just got the announcement last week that Horizon is pulling out of Vermont, New Hampshire, and Maine. They're dropping all the farms for buying milk. That's 150 farms who are going to be hard pressed not to go out of business, and because the market's not good. Well, they're doing that because they're getting cheaper milk from the Colorado and Texas CAFOs. Not what any of us would call organic, but the government is certifying it. And so I think that the fact that we all kind of looked away, we were busy. I was the same busy as you. I was raising my kids. I was trying to run a farm. But when we looked away, the world changed. And, now we're trying to see if organic is important, can we save it?
Yeah. I'm hopeful. It is important. It's really important, the work that you're doing and that we're all doing to try and sort of bring this stuff to light again, I think is super important. And we can't let that go, for sure. Yeah.
So I have a feeling we're not going to be able to take back the USDA program. I don't think they're going to decertify Aurora ever. I don't think they're going to decertify Driscoll's or Wholesome ever. There's just too much money involved. And you can see even with the efforts to pass the animal welfare, which would effectively decertify 3/4 of the eggs in America, I don't think they're going to be able to do it. And it made it all the way through the USDA. And then, Sonny Perdue came in and it got rejected. I don't think it's going to make it through the USDA again. There's too much money. But that doesn't mean that we don't have choices. It doesn't mean that we're helpless just because somebody took away our ball.
No, I think actually in some ways for our farm, it sort of strengthens our belief in grassroots organizing and grassroots activism, and the need for all of us to remain really vigilant in how organic moves forward, and supporting the Real Organic Project is one of those facets that just feels really important. I feel like in a lot of ways, it makes us strengthen just our community, our valley here. You know, when we first moved here, there were 3 organic farms in the valley, and now there's 48, I think, at last count. And just really supporting that, you know, staying small in our support of each other and being active in that feels more and more important as we get less able to make changes on a bigger sort of national or global scale. I feel like all of us need to hone into what we have in our backyard and how we can continue that movement of, you know, certifying the small guys and making sure that they have the support that they need to keep their market channels open and, you know, really honing in on success where we can right here at home.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know, for a farm of your scale, you're about 400 or 500 acres.
400
Yeah.
certified acres.
Yeah. Yeah, it's beautiful. Many crops, very mixed. And, you know, I know a number of farmers who learned how to farm working here, and they went off to start their own farms. I'm sure it's something that you're very proud of, that you know, one of your crops is farmers.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's great. But even so, you have a lot of contact with a lot of people who eat your food.
Yeah.
It's you know, kind of special that you have such reach into the community. You know, for people who are just wholesaling, I don't mean it as a derogatory thing, I just wholesale, but our tomatoes go out, and I know that there are thousands of people who are really love them and are happy, and they're healthier, and their kids eat them, and you know, it's working. But I don't get the emotional connection that you get, and you get it every week.
Yeah. You know, I think at one count we figured every week at least 20,000 people are eating our food somewhere in this area of Northern California. And, you know, that's either through a restaurant or through a store, through the farmers markets, through our CSA. And that's pretty exciting. And it's also, you know, helpful to tell our story. And it's really easy at the farmers market to sort of get people excited about what we're doing. I've been personally going to the farmers market for 38 years, and every Saturday morning, rain or shine, and I just love that connection that I have with those people. Those customers are friends now, and now some of them, their kids are now buying our food, and they are really connected to us. They are so dedicated to what we're trying to accomplish here at the farm, and that kind of storytelling and, you know, connection is so important with actual consumer.
Yes.
Every week. Yeah.
Have you thought about how you tell your true story, your honest story, to the people that eat your food? Because I think it's a big question.
Yeah, it's hard. You know, you have just this limited moment in time at the farmer's market as you walk with somebody down the aisle and help them fill up their basket. You know, it's 4 minutes at most. And so, you know, I think though over time, I mean, they've definitely seen all of our kids and watched them grow, and now they're back here at the farm with us. And so they see parts of our personal life. They know some of our struggles that we have each week. And so, yeah, I think that I wish there was, you know, a half an hour with each customer to to have them really understand what it's like to get up at 3 in the morning and, pack the truck at night, and what are the struggles that we have with crop pests and market issues. But, I think slowly, little bit by little bit, they actually do start to hear the story.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's important. I actually thought this a long time ago, even when we had a roadside stand, and I realized that most of the people who came to our stand heard about it from somebody else. And so the relationship we had to those customers and the stories that we told them were really important. It wasn't about putting ads in the paper.
Right.
It was about finding ways to share information. This is a long time ago. This is before the internet or anything. There was no social media, but we put out a little farm newsletter, and we wanted to build that connection because it was important. How else will people know and care?
Yeah.
And we're so disconnected from our food now, and the food, you go to the supermarket, it's just there. There's food, there are berries every day of the year.
Yeah.
There is no such thing as a blueberry season anymore.
We feel like getting people here to the farm, having them step on the soil here at our farm is probably the best way to get them connected and really understand. So, the more we can invite people here to our annual Hose Down Festival that we've had.
Tell people what the Hose Down is. Right?
So we have a festival the first week of October. We've done it for 31 years. And it's really just a celebration of agriculture. That's our mission, it's to celebrate the harvest. It's to celebrate that we're still farming and that farmers are amazing people. And so it's a real day of education. We do farm tours. But really the celebration part of dancing, getting people here to, walk through. We make a big maze and they walk through the corn maze, and that kind of thing affects people so deeply that, we've had people say that, it forever changed their life or changed the trajectory of their life. For having been here and slept under the stars. We allow people at that festival to camp. And, we get 5,000 or 6,000 people a year to it. And it's the best way to tell a story is to have them here and really feel the earth. And that has been so important. Our educational program, we do third grade overnight camps here. And we every year probably have 200 or 300 kids come. And now we have some of those kids, writing to us wanting to either get married here or work here with us. And that third grade experience when they were 9 years old, one of the most, memorable experiences that they had in school. And think about that impact that had. And so that just feels so important to continue that education for people to experience, with their hands, with their bodies, the whole farm thing. Yeah.
That's great. You all have a lot of energy.
Well, we're going to run out soon, so that's why we had lots of kids, and now they're back here farming, and it's probably maybe the best accomplishment that we have had is having our kids decide to come back and farm here with us. So rewarding, and they add all this spark of new energy and make us get more excited again about doing it well and doing it right. And they are all wonderful farmers. So we lucked out on that end.
Yeah, yeah, not just luck. All right. Dru Rivers, thank you very much. I'm going to let you go back to work. I know I'm here in the middle of another busy day. So
Busy August.
busy August.
Summer, yeah.
I'm really grateful for the time. I know it's a busy time of year. Yeah.
Thank you for coming to visit our farm.
Thank you for listening to the Real Organic Podcast. We hope that you will subscribe, tell your friends, and leave us a rating and a review so that others can find us. A video version of this interview is found at realorganicproject.org/episode 95. Please join us next time when our guest is Anna East Bedard of Lady Moon Farms. To support this podcast and our certified farms, become a recurring donor at realorganicproject.org and get the benefits of being a real friend, including our virtual book club where you can ask many of our favorite authors your questions. We're so excited. Our next book club guest is Alan Savory on January 12th. He is the founder of Holistic Management International and kind of a worldwide celebrity when it comes to livestock raising. I hope to see you there.